Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. It's me, Steven, again. How you doing? This week, I roped Emily into coming back. Hi, Emily. How you doing?
Hi, I'm great. How
Hold
are
on, I
you?
should sit close to the camera like you do, so that my head doesn't look tiny in comparison.
That's okay. I can move back.
No, it does. I'm just messing with you.
Balance,
Um,
balance.
Look, Craig says, "Ahoy, ahoy, ahoy to all, especially our rightful lawful queen, Emma the Eyrie." I thought that was lawful evil queen, which, if you've played with her, maybe you know where I'm getting at.
Look, that's
How you
only when
doing,
I'm a
Em?
DM. That's only when I'm a DM. I try to be a good person otherwise.
Right.
I'm good. I'm good. How about you?
Not too bad. I got a little bit behind the curve this morning or this afternoon, and I am struggling to get fully caught up to where I want to be right now, which I'm basically there. Hi, everyone. So, like, this is a new sort of thing we're doing, where we're going to talk about your D&D characters, which is a weird thing because, let's be honest, there are times when people can start talking about their D&D characters and your eyes glaze over and you just kind of tune out, like it's almost a meme among the community, or we who play this game. But yeah, this t- today tonight you're going to talk all about your characters, and maybe in so doing we're going to figure out a little bit more about Emily along the way.
Sure. Yeah. They're pretty intrinsically linked, I find. So,
Right, and as you say, there's like several people that you play with in the chat.
so
I
many. Yep.
have not seen anybody talk in the chat that I don't play with, or have not played with.
Nice.
Hello, friends. It's nice to see you all.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to start and with, with you play a few different characters that I know personally, and I'm going to start with the one where you are the player and I am the dungeon master, and this is a crew that we've been playing with together for quite some time. And yes, Sanrixian says Hecate superiority. I am talking about, if you will excuse me, this crew right here.
Yeah.
This is Sapphire Team. You are the blue haired dragon sorcerer in the bronze colored dress with blue
Yep.
accents. Beautiful art by Honey Soleil on Twitter. I really should have had a banner ready with her name. Hold on.
Maybe someone in the chat can help us out too. I
Yeah.
see I see Sanri in there. I bet she can find it for us. Yeah, yeah. Most of
I
my party's in the chat.
believe I believe that's her. I bet I spelled it wrong. I bet it's IEH. Anyway, if somebody would find that, that would be awesome. But yeah, that's Hecate Webb. Why don't we talk a little bit about, yeah. Thank you, Sanri. Appreciate it very much. I was
Give
really
her a
close.
follow. Yeah, give her a follow. She's
Yeah,
doing great
her
work.
art's amazing, and she's such a sweetheart too.
Can I just like point out a couple of things on this art that are
Yeah,
special about not just
absolutely.
my character but a few people's characters? So, as Steven said, Hecate is the one with the blue hair there, and she's wearing a lot of gold and brass and bronze accents because she is a draconic bloodline sorceress. And for a while at the beginning of the story, Emily knew, Steven knew, but like Hecate, the character, didn't really know what kind of draconic bloodline she was. And so she's incorporated a lot of those metallic tones into her wardrobe. And I really like that that was picked up in the art here. Another thing that I will point out is if you see the red tiefling there, that's Sanri's player or her character. her name's Satai, and the horn that she has at the beginning of the campaign was broken, and she'd been kind of walking around with one full horn and one broken horn. While Dram, the water genasi monk, the blue guy, if you're not a big D&D person, he
Played by this gentleman.
Yes, ridiculous Ed Tollett. Thank you. he is a glassblower and made her a new prosthetic horn, and then just to mention Merrick there on the side in the black, that's Hecate's friend with benefit, we like to joke.
Yeah.
Played by Sanri's brother, Aaron. And Merrick has a throat tattoo there, and it's got a personal meaning to it. I'll just say that. It's quite funny. So yeah, I love the art. It's been cool to see the characters come alive.
Yeah, I was super in love with the art when it came in. I'm gonna take it down now so you can see our faces. But yeah, if you search my Twitter, I posted it there if you want to look at it some more. And it is one of those, like, not to go off on the art rather than the character, but man, the detail in that thing is incredible. Like, individually rendered beads, each one individually like shaded, and Sanri says it says "trust me" in Infernal on his neck, which is so funny.
Thank you. Yeah, he's a rogue, and trusting him is the last thing anyone should be doing. I mean, the first thing he said to me was, "Hi, I'm John," and his name is not John. So.
Right, his name is not John. But let's talk about Hecate, because that's the character I have. Well, yeah, probably the character I know best.
You know best.
To play. There's another one that I know pretty well, Azira. We'll get to her later. But yeah, let's talk about Hecate. Like, she is a draconic sorcerer. What made you choose draconic sorcerer when we were putting this game together?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been a DM for a long time, and so you were giving me kind of the opportunity to play in a long-term campaign for the first time in several years for me. I've got a couple of other characters kicking around that we'll talk about that are in more short-term campaigns, but I, spent a lot of time talking to you about the lore in the world, which I recommend that everybody do with their DM ahead of time. You mentioned that dragons were a big part of this world. You had a lot of lore around how the metallic dragons, which in Dungeons and Dragons tend to be the good aligned dragons, they have been extinct from the world for at least a millennia, and it's a mystery. It's almost myth whether they ever actually existed. And I, latched into this immediately. I wanted to play a charismatic caster this time, because I'm playing a monk as my other kind of main, monk and paladin as my other main PCs right now. So I didn't really want to do the warlock thing. And so I asked you, okay, I want to do this. If I played a draconic bloodline sorcerer, would you let me play a metallic dragon one? Because, they kind of don't exist in your world. And your eyes just lit up immediately, and you were like, oh yes. And so I knew you had something concocted, something planned. So without having any idea what you're going to throw at me or how that was going to fit in the world, I went down that path with Hecate, and it's been a lot of fun. I try to incorporate spells into her lexicon that like are in touch with her draconic origins. So even though these aren't all spells that, come from that subclass, like I have a lot of fire-based magic. I took Dragon's Breath. Like, there are things that Hecate does that, just have a lot of fire behind them, because ultimately she is a brass dragon, dragonborn sorcerer. So their damage type is fire.
Right. Yeah, and you're playing in a very specific campaign that written is a generous term, but like it's been this is my third crew that I've run this particular long-term campaign for, and there are purposefully a lot of little things, little spaces in the story where you can take someone's backstory and slot it in to make this campaign particular to that character, make it feel like they're part of the bigger story. But yeah, dragons do figure into that quite heavily, and like, oh, you're a bronze, or no, you're a brass dragon sorcerer in a world where brass dragons barely exist, haven't been seen in 1,000 years, might be legendary to begin with.
Yeah, we really worked it into the backstory, right? So Hecate, I wanted to have a unique backstory. I really love the Mistborn series, and so I really enjoy Vin as a character, how she, starts as an urchin, but there's kind of something about her and she's lifted out of that. So I utilize that in my that kind of backstory. Hecate is an orphan. She does not know who her father was. So, she grew up thinking, oh my God, of course it's my dad who must be the bloodline, because my mother would have known otherwise. Her mother dies and she ends up on the streets. And due to being a very charismatic caster with innate magic, she's able to survive in a way that a lot of street urchins, don't have the opportunity to. So she, avoids, being sold or captured or just dying of hunger or starvation on the streets, and eventually basically got caught doing magic in front of one of Steven's NPCs, who then, I wouldn't say he's like a grandfather figure, more just like a generous benefactor.
He is a benefactor. He is not warm and cuddly, though.
No, but like, neither is Hecate, really.
Right.
Yeah, and he put her kind of on a path. So I see the chat mentioning that Sandry mentioned she went to university. So she basically was able to get an education, and university found out, like, I'm not actually that intelligent. My magic is completely innate, and I'm going to fail out of wizard college. So she kind of got like a faculty job because she didn't really know what she wanted to do with her life, and was kind of, basically being studied by the faculty, or by the staff of the university, until she got kind of uncomfortable with that and felt she really learned everything that she could have about her mysterious origins and where her magic came from, and decided to leave. And her deciding to kind of leave and step out on her own was really where the campaign started. So
right, that was like the everyone coming together.
Exactly. So they all call me University Girl because I know how to put on appearances, like disguise and deception and just general charisma and being well spoken. The kind of the haphazard kind of mishaps that she became friends with were like, oh my God, University Girl, and she's like, yeah, just don't look into that too deeply, because like. It's nice you think I'm the smart one, but I think the lowest intelligence character in the party, possibly, and no one really should listen to her, but she's got that force of personality, so sometimes they still do.
So did you just want to play a charisma-based character? Is that what pushed you towards sorcerer to begin with?
Yeah, so I've created a lot of different types of characters in the past, but I find that, like, so Emily as a person is like, if I had to stat myself out, like, charisma would be one of my higher stats.
I
So
agree.
I find it comfortable to play in that space, and oftentimes when I choose not to play the face, it's hard for me to shut up and let other people fill that role. So I decided to lean into it. I was coming off of a stint of like doing a lot of DMing for other folks, playing a lot of characters who kind of fit the story, but weren't necessarily stuff that I gravitate to. So Hecate was purely just like a comfort character, someone who I could slip into really easily and enjoy playing. And yeah, so she's not my first sorcerer, actually.
Right. It really helps that the rest of that crew is pretty awesome. Like, you guys meshed really well. It's been.
There are very few groups that I've like just immediately role played with so well from the go.
Yeah, I've got about, so I was running 4 games. 2 of them are kind of on hiatus, whatever. But the other 2, it was the one you play in, and then there's another one. And it really is down to what makes me enjoy it is watching the characters bounce off of each other and interact, and
yeah, there's a lot of times where, like, for the first half of the session, like, or not even half, but like first 30 minutes of the session at least, like, is just the characters catching up with each other. Another thing is, like, we ended up having kind of like to like romances in this 4-person party, so that
Mhm.
often to a little drama. I mean, I guess I don't think any one of the 4 of them would acknowledge that they are in a relationship, but
Yeah, but they're basically a quadruple.
Except for 2 of them are siblings. So
Except for 2 of them are siblings. They're at opposite ends.
yeah, exactly. So that kind of gameplay isn't for every table, though.
No, but
But it works
honestly,
for
like
us.
it's some of this is the character, some of this is the player. There's a reason that I wanted to have you as the first guest for this series, and that's because your role playing ability in the game is so good. The way y'all chew up the scenery, that I put something in front of you. You guys are gonna look at the top, underneath, around all the sides, look and see what's inside. If there's water, you're going to
Let Merrick drown in it,
let
probably.
Merrick drown in it, or have a chicken fight, or like, and that is kind of
Yeah.
a unique thing for me as a dungeon master. I'm so used to parties being to like, what's the next monster? What's the next trap? What's the next thing? The next thing? The next thing? And that's fine. That's been how the game is played for a long time. But I really have enjoyed the way that, especially the party that Hecate is in, is going to like just live your false light, your false life.
Yeah, we're we like to balance, I think, the fact that there's a mission that we're on with the fact that we're people, and I think that that's something that not every table's looking for, but it is definitely what I'm looking for at my tables is to develop a full character, not just a stat block that you trot around to the next adventure. Because there's video games for that, I think. And
Sure.
yeah.
You know what? You nailed a thought that I've like. You just nailed it. Video games are great for what they do, but I love for my game to where you can do all the things that you literally can't do in a video game. You know.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, so I I just love the way that character is a part of the game world and engages with the game world like they live in it. And some of that is it's my game world that I've spent 20 years developing, so there's a lot of layers there. But honestly, I've had players that just glide right over the top of all of that. Like it's still there, it's still providing the foundation of whatever story we're talking about, but they just go right over. They kind of miss the depths and the details. I'm really stumbling over my words. Apologies. But you guys don't do that to the point that this campaign that you're playing in was intended to take like 1 year playing every 2 weeks. So
we're at like session 23 or 24, and we are like done with act 1 of 3, I think.
No, you're well into act 2.
Oh, okay. All right. You're progressing more than I thought.
You're 60% of the way through at what I thought would be like 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Well, that it would be required. But a lot of that is just down to yeah, exactly, Sean. But I love that about your play style. And I've seen you do that with other characters. We can circle back to Hecate in a minute, but let's talk about the other character I know well, where we play together. And in a team, we call it Babe Squad. I joined Babe Squad while it was already going, but in Babe Squad, who do you play?
So I play Azira Renarin. I told you I was a Brandon Sanderson fan. She is a half-elf paladin. She's a noble. She's kind of young, in the family. So she's like, I think 4th or 5th sibling down, doesn't have a lot of expectations on her. And she a big thing for her was that she is a lesbian and wasn't very accepted at home and wanted to get out and kind of prove herself on her own. you know, she's in semi good standing with her family, but it's like a mutually beneficial situation of like, okay, you go be different elsewhere where we don't have to see it, and like we'll give you an allowance. That's kind of her situation. And she's had to work through that a lot, and she fell into this group of, it was originally all women, which is a kind of a hard situation for her to be in, but you know, I kind of adopted a, you know, I don't shit where I eat kind of rule with her. And yeah, she's a very prideful person. Pretty early in the campaign, we're playing Hoard of the Dragon Queen. So if you're familiar with that adventure, I'm sorry if any of these are a little bit of spoilers. I'll try to be really general in what I'm explaining, but she had to fight kind of the champion of the enemy who was much more powerful than she was. And on top of being much more powerful than she was, like I crit failed like 2 or 3 times in the 2-round combat that we had to play, and just got my ass absolutely handed to me in front of like an entire town. And that was really, really hard for Azira to deal with. But her friends accepted her, like, and, you know, kind of let her have her pity party a little bit and then helped her move on. And yeah, she's figuring herself out quite a bit on the road. She often is like put in the situation where she has to be like the captain, and it's kind of this ruse we have going. So like we're all equals in our party, but sometimes to the outside world, she'll be in charge of the hirelings, and you know, again, not a very intelligent character. I guess intelligence. I haven't played a wizard in a while, so I haven't needed it. But she blunders her way through situations just with raw charisma and kind of that noble bearing that she has.
Right, raw charisma and like you're paladin, you hit hard.
Oh yeah, I'm very strong too. I definitely hit hard. I'm, you know, decked out with some really good stuff. I just got a griffin mount like right before we took a hiatus in that campaign, so I haven't gotten to take my griffin mount out in really at all yet. But
how are you going to make sure that you don't fall off while you're riding that thing?
Yeah. So as Steven mentioned, he joined this group later, and he's playing an artificer. So he made my character a fancy saddle. And you know, I said that, you know, Azira really kind of decided not to shit where she ate romantically, so to speak, within her own party. But when your character came along, that kind of threw that for a loop, because, and I have to explain now finally, because I don't think I've ever explained this to you, where this kind of came from. But after like a hard-won battle, we were all kind of talking, and Steven's character said something, and my character responded by winking at him, which is very much.
And then invited him to dinner, basically because he wanted to share information, but like, yeah.
He fully mistook it. Well, the whole winking thing just is honestly like comes from my dad. So my dad is a big winker, and like all my friends find it really funny. And it's kind of like a little meme in our friend group about how my dad winks all the time, and how he doesn't mean it's not flirtatious. It's just like a jolly kind of thing that he does to everyone. And so when I chose to do that in game, I was not trying to mislead. You guys, maybe the chat should name the griffin. I don't think I named it.
Joe Magician's got a couple of really great suggestions there.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Noted. I hope I remember in November when
we're going to call him. Yeah. Yeah. We'll call him Egg on the 7th.
Ooh, I don't know about that. No? I got another friend, Egg 6, who I don't know if he'd like that one. Anyway, yeah, so again, like, not only was Azira definitely not trying to flirt with you, but like when I made that character choice, Emily didn't even factor in that could be taken flirtatiously. But yes, Steven's character, big himbo dwarf artificer, you know, was just like, oh, she's inviting me on a date, and this is wonderful. And that led to like a good couple of months of really funny, like, you know, consensual. Steven and I, of course, talked about it ahead of time and made sure everyone at the table was cool with it, but led to some really funny role play where essentially, like, I'm like, wow, this guy's like my new best friend. Like, we are like himbo bros together.
And my character is like, oh my gosh, she's totally into me.
Yeah, so that
It was
Yeah, that all came to a head
hilarious, y'all. I'm
eventually.
telling you, we laughed so many times because we intentionally played it to where it remained ambiguous.
Well, and then the other part about it was like, to your character's credit, like, like you do, if you're into someone and you're not sure what they think back, you go and maybe talk to their friends and figure out. So Arkin went and spoke to every single other member of the D&D party, all 4 of them, who all knew that she was gay, and was like sniffing around for information, and not a soul told him or picked up on that. I'm sorry about my dogs in the background, by the way. And so, yeah, it just, it like, by the time the moment finally came where he confessed his feelings, like, so much false confidence, like, just absolutely, like, you gave me this beautiful present in game that you had like spent like
A
weeks
music box.
crafting, like
He's
this.
an artificer, so he made a music box.
Yeah, and like, it was just like painful, but in the funniest way.
Yeah,
So,
it was a
yeah.
train wreck in slow motion a lot of the time.
Sorry, just scolding the
But
children.
I found it hilarious and really fun to RP. Jinx wants to hear about your D&D romance.
Sure. Okay, yeah.
I
It's
didn't
not.
forget about you, Jinx. We circled back to it.
Yeah. I'll start with the characters that I've already talked about, and then I'll mention like maybe my Aaron's not in the chat, so I don't maybe won't feel bad, but then I'll talk about my favorite D&D romance after that.
Okay.
But yeah, so with Hecate, as I mentioned before, from Charisma Crew, we call ourselves the main characters as well, or Sapphire Team.
I wish I'd
You
worn my
know, you told me that I was from like Fantasy Paris, and I decided, because I was fresh off the heels of playing this like extremely uptight, anxious, very prudish wizard, that like I was going to go in the complete other direction. Like, the number one thing that I thought about in terms of this character's sexuality was like the most like sex positive person I could think of. That was Hecate. So the campaign started, and she's high charisma, and a lot of that is just like being a hottie. Like, I made that pretty. I'm sort of awkward in my charisma, so often my charismatic characters are like extremely attractive. And so their awkwardness is very endearing. That's kind of my approach. So Hecate, immediately caught the eye of the like bad boy rogue of the party, Merrick, and he would hit on her constantly because that was part of his character. Like, he just, very much like a bad boy, like sleep with anything that moves. Like, and so Hecate was like, no, like, I'm basically I have too much respect for myself to to sleep with this rogue, and would just reject him constantly, which then made him want her more. And I wouldn't say that it was like enemies to lovers, but it was very much of kind of a antagonistic relationship between the two of them, where she was kind of thriving off the attention. It certainly was a little toxic, but the other player and I were very on board with how things were going.
Right. And if I could just interject for a moment,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure most of you who play with me have heard me say something to this effect before, but like, you really do, before you go there with this type of gameplay, just make sure everybody at the table is comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and like, we still do the fade to black thing, like.
Oh yeah, like, just because like they're seeing each other doesn't mean that like it's even really well known what happens like behind those closed doors. Like, we don't share that much. Yeah, so the other kind of complicated thing with Hecate is that Merrick's sister is in the party, and so part of what made her hold off was, am I just gonna like ruin the party dynamics? Like, if I sleep with this guy who's starting to win me over a little bit with his persistence, will that, how will the sister feel? I don't want to alienate kind of the found family that I've developed here. Meanwhile, little did Hecate know, but definitely Emily knew, that Sandry's character is bi and was kind of struggling with feelings for, does she like Hecate as well? And there was this kind of
It's complicated.
It was a weird love triangle where two siblings were after me at the same time, and ultimately it kind of came down to Satai, the sister, being really inexperienced and awkward and trying to figure out her sexuality still, and Hecate deciding like, that's a little too much drama for me. Like, I feel like I could just be a little bit more no strings attached with the brother. And then like promptly they just like immediately fell for each other, but won't acknowledge it. And like Hecate, like they won't tell each other that they actually like each other, because Hecate is very afraid that he's gonna like freak out about commitment. Merrick, I don't think has realized yet that he actually cares about her that deeply. So it's fun times. But yeah, so that's one relationship. I already mentioned Azira and kind of her non-relationships, really. I don't know. Romance is sometimes like my first D&D character had a boyfriend. Actually, this is very cringe and funny at the same time. But my first D&D character, Veer, who I played for like 7 years, my DM basically set her up with a very well-known Forgotten Realms character by the name of Artemis and Eyrie, who, if you're familiar with those works, is like an evil bastard assassin who's like the main antagonist of the series. He flickers between like chaotic neutral and actual evil, but that we weren't playing good characters in that campaign. So yeah, I guess romance has always kind of been a part of it to me, but to the degree that impacts the role play versus just like, oh, my character is attached to someone, it varies greatly between my games. So
would you say that romance is something you look for in the game? Because
no,
no, because I would.
It seems like it, but no.
I wouldn't say that necessarily. It even seems like it, because Azira, who she plays Azira, I play Arkin. It's the A team, and we do get stuff done. Like,
oh yeah,
when it's serious, you send in the A team, and we take care of stuff. But like Azira doesn't have any romantic entanglements at all.
Yeah. Like I said, she doesn't really want to. She's more about kind of like proving that she's got honor and skill and that her sexuality doesn't define her. So like being kind of celibate on purpose right now for her makes sense. I also, looking at, she hasn't been presented with a lot of like NPC opportunities to pursue. And she doesn't really want to get with anyone in the group. And despite traveling with 4 other women, the only character
I know those women though. I know those women.
Oh, right. Well, the only character that I think Azira would actually fall for is played by my friend Emma, who does not really enjoy that element of role play. Just not to their personal tastes. And so, I was like, great, it's pretty easy for me to just decide that they're very platonic then, and that I don't see it that way either. So that's kind of how you can kind of control that. I don't seek out romance, but I play high charisma characters, so romance seeks me out, I think, because of that.
You're like, I'm just hot, so they always come for me. Yeah, I got you.
I mean, yes, but no. Like I said, I haven't even talked about my like favorite D&D romance yet, which is a character I've been playing for almost 2 years now. My halfling monk named Marsley, who as well, because we've played together as Marsley
a couple times together.
Yeah, just here and there. I run a more kind of like adventure league style game that like people can also do like play by post stuff with. And in that game, like the very first adventure that I brought Marsley on, our friend Tana Ford was DMing. And I'm playing with like literal unknowns, people I'd never met before, or met maybe one time in a one shot that I had run. And Marsley ended up rescuing one of the other characters. We were in combat on a lake. Craig, who's talking to me in the chat, his character started drowning, and my character pulled him out of the water. And then after combat was over, found out his flask had gotten broken in the melee. She was a glass blower. She took the flask that she was carrying and just said, here, like, you probably need this more than me. I built this character to kind of be a PC/NPC for this world that I sometimes DM in and sometimes play in. So I just built her to be extremely friendly and likable. Like, that was the main goal for her. I would just want to be an adorable little halfling monk who's doing flying kicks all over the place. And is faster than she has any rights to be. Yep, she's so cute. So, after that, Craig reached out to me and was like, hey, I know we don't know each other very well, but like, if you're comfortable with it, like, I feel like, knowing my backstory, and he explained Snora's backstory, like, it would make a lot of sense that he would have like totally fallen for her in that moment. Like, are you comfortable with that? And I said, yeah, I'm comfortable with the fact that he has feelings, but like, no promises, dude. Like, I don't know that she's gonna, be your type. Like, I don't really write my characters like into boxes like that. They're real people, so it really depends, how things go down, how I want to react. So I was like, they have kind of a big age gap. I know that like halflings and dwarves age differently, but like, 95 years is still 95 years.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of saw where it went, and like, she totally ended up like, he ended up being a really good friend to her and helping her through a lot of difficulties. And she was someone who had really avoided romance for a long time after being spurned in a really negative way. And so he kind of had to show her that it was okay to trust someone in that way again. And through that, they've built a really strong relationship, and now they're like engaged to be married. So they're totally like, they're my faves to play when it comes to romance. So
yeah, just my own sort of experience with this. Romance is historically has not been a big part of my personal game, neither as a dungeon master or as a player. It's happened for sure. Throughout, I don't think I had a in-game relationship until I was probably in high school. Before that, I just wanted to hit dragons and steal their gold.
Yeah, that's totally valid.
Right. So sometimes I forget about that even being a part of the game, but as time has gone on, me personally, I have moved away from the dungeon crawly aspects of the game to more towards the like improv side of the game.
Yep, exactly. Like, it's totally improv. I mean, my Hecate's relationship with Merrick was fully improv. You were at HereBeCon, you weren't even there, but we were like a couple months into the campaign, nerding out really hard. So Aaron, Sanry, Sean, and I were like, let's just get together and we'll play what we called Zone of Truth or Dare, where someone casts Zone of Truth and then we play a game of Truth or Dare. It was really fun, and I recommend that everyone does this at some point in their game. Because it's like the best character building exercise you could think of.
Real talk, I'm the dungeon master, but we were having HereBeCon, so I was indisposed with having a whole bunch of people visiting. But this party right here, this crew got together and cast Zone of Truth on each other and played Truth or Dare, and I got to hear all about it afterwards.
I took fastidious notes, so I'd be happy to share some snippets with you at some point.
Highlight? Yeah.
My notebook.
Hold on. Show that again.
Yeah. This is one of Sanry's designs, so when I started playing D&D with her, I had to use it for that. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Like, Hecate dares Dram to jump off a 30-foot tree branch and do as many backflips as possible before landing. The note is, he does this perfectly. Crit, does 13 backflips. Like, Hecate knew he was a monk and would take no fall damage doing that, so I'm not as terrible as I seem. But yeah, I mean, like, there's definitely some juicy stuff in here.
Hold on right there, because Sanry says what happens in the Zone of Truth stays in the Zone of Truth. I guess.
All right. I'll put the notebook away.
You're getting called out.
I will get back to my original point, which was, that it is really improv, and like the decision that I made to like, go from, rejecting Merrick all the time and not not giving him the time of day happened in that game. The other two were off doing something, and Hecate looked at Merrick and was like, want to make out. And by the way, the whole Zoom call was like, oh my God, there was like there was a small freak out break from everyone in the Zoom call. And when we gathered ourselves again, he was like, what? Why? Like, I mean, yes, but why? And she was like, no one would ever believe you if you said. So
and you know what's
that's
funny? At the time you said that was true. Nobody would have believed him.
Yep.
Because you had been steady rejecting him the whole time.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That was kind of my thought process, was like, I've been shooting him down for a while, but like I'm like lonely on the road. Like we've got like 4 more weeks of travel left. Like, sure, let's make out. I'm really bored. So, yeah, those moments are spontaneous. I mean, same with Marcelly, same with my other relationships, and I've actually like rejected a character in game because on in the moment it just didn't work for me. So, actually, Nessie, one of your hosts, she kind of had the hots for this wizard character I have, and decided to kind of confess her feelings like right after a very near-death experience, and it caused my character to, instead of falling lovingly into her arms, have a panic attack. And so yeah, that kind of firmly shut that down. So I really do try to make choices in the moment, not railroad my characters into or out of romances, or any choice. I mean, that, like, we're talking a lot about romance, but
That's sort of the topic we're on, but I think you're right. I think it's a good idea to keep your options open really at all times. That's why things like alignment are useful tools. They're not a sort of like box to put yourself in, but it is useful to sort of like help guide your decision making process. And I love this. Hey John, how you doing, buddy? Hope you're enjoying your week off from the stream. But yeah, I'm sure you have no idea.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, whenever I play a character, I really want to, I know that the phrase like "that's what my character would do" gets a bad rap because it's an excuse that people use to be
for
shitty,
bad behavior. It's an excuse for bad behavior a lot of times. You're right.
But, I think if you have a lot of trust and consent with your players around the table, that you actually do want them to be making the choices that their character would do. And, sometimes that means acting imperfectly. Like I've actually found that there are a few people who I don't enjoy playing with as much as I used to, because they are very like robotic in their choices of like, we have to optimize everything. I have to be a combat robot. Like I've got to really, I'm in it to win, and I'm just in it to be a person.
Cast your mind back a year or so where we had a conversation about the habits that make good players. And that was one of the things that we definitely touched on, was you do not have to make the perfect decision every time. It's often quite fun to make the imperfect decision.
Yeah.
And it definitely keeps the game moving.
Yep. Absolutely. I love it when I have a player in my group, because I DM too. I love it when a player in my group does that. And I almost always award inspiration for, I'm doing the thing I would do, not the thing that I should do. Especially if what I should do is meta knowledge they shouldn't actually have.
Right. Totally agree with you. And that is one of the reasons that I enjoy playing with you as much as I do, Emily. I mean, you're great at the RP aspect. And being good at improv is not enough to be good at the game, though. Like, you have to know when to shut up. You have to know, like, to me, the best player, and I try to do this too, knows what the dungeon master is trying to do and will help the dungeon master get there, even. And I've definitely noticed you do that type of thing in the way you approach the game. Like it is a cooperative narrative.
Yeah. Yep. I think, like, I don't know, it's easy to chew on every bit of scenery, but I think, there's a balance between, I want to like really live in this world, and like, I'm now asking my DM to perform a bunch of on the spot labor because I'm not focusing on the thing that, we're trying to actually do.
Just don't ask me to name anything and we'll be fine.
Yeah, I know.
Let's see. I have characters named Demit, and we met a character yesterday, or not yesterday. I got another character named Idano because somebody asked me what this character's name was, and I went, "Damn it!" Because I'm terrible at naming them. Yeah. So he became Damit, and then Idano was, what's this guy's name? I don't know. So he became Idano. And yes, Kate has met both of them.
Nice.
So it'd be like that sometimes.
I know. Yeah, you had like a whole string of NPCs at the beginning of the campaign that were like extremely mundane names, but they all had like a W in front of them that was silent.
There you go. Sean's got it. Yeah, like Bob with a W, but the W silent. Yeah.
Also, there's a variation on that with Merrick, where he left and right the cart horses. We've got John Merrick, aka John with an H, and John without an H, depending on like how wily or what persona he's trying to to embody that day.
But the reason she was Marge is because she owned a large barge.
Yeah.
So you can see where I'm really good at dungeon mastering in a lot of aspects, but naming stuff is not one of my strong suits.
You just let us do it for you, and we come up with delightful things like the T-Rex.
Yeah, Latanya the T-Rex. That's a whole I need to get Sari on here to talk about her character because that is but the T-Rex which Sari befriended and made tea for.
Yeah, you were like, I'm going to attack you with dinosaurs. And I was like, guess what, Steven? Dinosaurs are beasts. And Sandry was like, I can make friends with all animals.
Right. I just attacked you with a bulette later. It's fine.
Yep, exactly.
But I guess I need more coffee. Brain. I occasionally stumble, I can handle that animal. Indeed. It would be fun to hear her talk about her character. Some.
Yeah, Sandry's a lot newer to the game, so while we play really well together, it's like totally different vibe.
First real character. Quote unquote character.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. And Emily, that was another thing. You come in, the game. Not just the rules of the game and not just how to do improv well, but how to there are subtle ways of reading people where you can, when to interject, when to be quiet, when to say something because the dungeon master is struggling, that's going to move things in the right direction. And I've always really appreciated that about you. Would you say that's something that grows out of your dungeon mastering, or is that just the way you played always?
I'm I've always been a facilitator. I've always been someone who likes to bring people together and connect people, whether it's in or out of the game. So I think that's just really core to who I am as a person, but I definitely have gotten a lot better at it, and it doesn't have to be something that you are naturally good at right away to develop it for your game. So I think the first time I played D&D, I had, you go through that cycle of I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm freaking out about if I'm playing right. I finally kind of get the feel of it, but I'm playing in my case, the biggest edgelord who ever edgelorded. Or edge ladied. I don't know. I mostly play female PCs. Then I DM'd the first time and I had some cool concepts, but I had no clue what I was doing. And I really went in all out, I'm going to homebrew the entire plot line and the whole world. And since then I've learned how to make things easier on myself because I'm a perpetually overbooked woman. Now it's my prep for my D&D session I ran on Friday night. I did 30 minutes of prep because I didn't need to do more, I don't it's come a lot more naturally, doing more with improv and just having a lot of rote memory and all that comes with time. I think it's made me a better character because I think after the first time I DM'd, I had been on the other side of the screen and I really knew what the deltas were between how my players, especially my new players, were feeling and and then what the DM was feeling. So I could kind of help get them there. One big thing that I say to new people at my table, even if I'm not DMing, is don't worry about how to do it or how to understand every mechanic on your character sheet. Like, know roughly what you do and what your role is, but then, just describe what you want to do, and the DM will fit that into a turn for you. Like, if you in combat, like, want to help an ally, and you've got kind of 2 spell options for that, you can kind of figure that out and learn as you go. I try to really encourage people when they're playing to get in tune with the character to the point where you're really just you're choosing what they would do. You're not choosing the right way to play D&D.
Right. And again, it circles back to why I love you as a player, is because you are not trying to make the optimal choice every single time. You are not trying to win D&D. You are trying to play the game. And
I win when everyone's having fun, and the game is humming along,
Yeah, you've heard me say it many times. If you're having fun, you're doing it right. But part of the way that the game remains fun for everyone is that we don't spend 15 minutes waiting on you to pick which spell you're going to cast every time it's your turn in combat.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes the battlefield changes between your last turn and this turn, and you have to, okay, I'm not sure what I knew what I was going to do. Now I have to think again. But we know some players out there who don't start thinking about what they're going to do until you call their name on their turn, and then they have to. You don't do that. You're snappy. You're snappy. You keep it rolling, and I love that.
Well, yeah, that's experience. A lot of that's experience.
It is, but like, it's more than just experience. It's also realizing that
momentum is important.
Yes. And like, I'm going to take the hit on doing the maximally optimal thing in order to keep the momentum rolling.
Yeah. Like, there was an active combat going on the other day, and our cleric kind of chose to step out of it and help an NPC because, that was more likely what she would do. And that's what she thought the priority was at the time. And, I think like one of her party members was like, I'm like, well, it's fine,
Right.
It's all good. Yeah, I think, one thing I would say to new people, and like that like makes it easier, I think, when you're getting started to like really get through that newbie phase of like taking really long turns or not really being sure what to do, is like play something that you feel comfortable with, that feels, personality wise, feels really comfy to you. So my first character was a chaotic neutral edgelord who was super high intelligence. She had high charisma. So like there were aspects of me that fit Veer, but like chaotic was not it. I ended up being kind of the group mom in a group of 3 other chaotic people who are way more chaotic than me. And my alignment ended up getting dragged almost completely to lawful by the end of the campaign because of that. So
but that's almost good role playing in itself too, that you.
Yeah, I'm glad we moved it. But yeah, I mean, realistically, like, I never really was playing her chaotically to begin with. I'm a fairly lawful person. I can play really good chaotic characters now because I have a lot of experience. But when you get started, play something that's comfortable to you, because otherwise you're going to be that person who's doing really, like if you're like, ooh, chaotic neutral sounds fun, but you're not actually chaotic neutral in real life. Your interpretation of chaotic neutral could just be being an asshole to my party all the time. Like, you really don't want to do that.
That's not right. If everybody at the table is on the same page with that, and you're like, I want to play an asshole, a very disagreeable person, like that could still be fun. There are characters who are assholes in TV shows and movies that we all enjoy to watch them.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and then the other thing that I would recommend, and not just with alignment, but play a martial class the first time you play. Just don't enter spells into it, or play a paladin or a ranger, or someone who doesn't get very many spells and it's super limited when you use them, because
rogue's also a good choice for an early
rogue's
character.
a good choice. Yep. I feel like most people I know who have chosen a full caster as their first character have come back and said, gosh, it would have been a lot easier on myself if I had chosen a different class. And most of the time I'm like, yeah, I told you, I said that already. But
I will say, like, you do not need to play a fighter as your first class. If Craig agrees with you, all hail the marshals. But like, you can play a wizard as your first character. I know people who have played full casters as their first character. My friend Jess, when she joined a game in progress, she had to make a leveled up. What level were y'all at that point? It's probably like 7 or 6, maybe 7. I'm going to say 6, but she had to make like a level 6 character, and she chose Necromancer Wizard as her character. So, like, it's totally doable.
It's doable. Yeah, I'm not saying don't do it, but just know it's going to be harder.
Yeah, there is more homework involved.
I have like the cleric in my group that I DM locally here in Michigan. She's a fairly timid person. She doesn't like the spotlight on her, and like, the idea of people waiting on her to make a decision makes her uncomfortable. And, but she decided to play a cleric and came to me later on and was like, I know what I'm doing now, so it's fine. But if I could go back, I would totally have played a ranger or something easier than this. So, I think it's just, yourself. Do I have a favorite class?
You have a favorite class. I mean, I know you as a frequent dungeon master, and it's always been my experience that the more you DM, the less likely you are to have a favorite class, like above all others. But do you have a main?
I don't have a favorite class. I just love classes that charisma is useful for. I have never played a warlock, actually, so that's not entirely true, but like, I've played more than one bard, I've played more than one sorcerer, I've played a lot of paladins. Paladin I really like.
Paladin's good class.
Yeah, I mean, like, how could you not love paladin? You can kick ass, you're extremely martial. All my paladins are 2-weapon fighting because I love hurling a giant greatsword around. They, are generally well liked. They can heal. Like, they're just a really fun class to play. But yeah, I mean, I probably fall into that group like most DMs, where like at this point, NPCs, I've played a couple of warlocks, I guess. So, I think I've experienced every class now. It's just that oftentimes they're NPCs.
So your short answer is you don't have a favorite class, but if it's a charisma based class, you're leaning that way.
Yep.
All right, I got you. And we talked earlier about why you like charisma characters.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. Okay. Well, Emily, we've been going for about an hour, so I'm going to do the mid roll. Oh, hold on.
Yeah. Don't yawn on camera.
Right. Don't yawn on camera.
Nobody would know.
It's all right. I turned off my camera real quick. Nobody noticed anything. Yeah, John. Yes, I would love to see you play Hup, the podling paladin. If for those of you that don't know, have you seen the the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance show, Emily?
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so good, and I feel like John would do a great job with that kind of a character.
Yeah, he makes a great. He is a paladin. He can divine smite with that spoon.
Yeah, I was just thinking about all the classes I played, and I think it's bard, sorcerer, rogue, paladin, wizard. I counted wizard twice, sorry, and monk. I played more than one wizard, though.
No fighter on that list. No fighter.
Yeah, I mean, again, played plenty of fighters as a DM.
No cleric.
Everyone always chooses cleric before I get the chance. So every time I thought about playing a cleric, someone else was like, I really want to do cleric. And I was like, go ahead.
Like that.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's do the mid roll and then we'll get back to it. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So hi everyone who's watching. Thank you for coming. Will you please hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you're not subscribed? Hit the like button. We'll be back next week for something. I don't know what, but something.
Something nerdy.
Something nerdy. Who knows? John, tell me what we're doing next week. Quick, John, tell me what we're doing next week. It's fine. You've got a little bit of time to figure it out. But yeah, so we'll be back next Sunday with something nerdy. Upcoming streams we will be doing is an end. Once Rings of Power is over, we will be doing some coverage of that. Once Hot D ends, we'll be doing some coverage of that. On the 30th of October, we are doing a Addams Family, the movie from like 1992 or whatever. We're going to be doing a review of that movie. And just so you know, hey, hold on 1 second. I just got to grab this thing because I got my Halloween costume for the Addams Family stream, and y'all can all get to see it at the same time. So, Emily, I got a wig.
Oh boy.
and I got a ladies extra large Wednesday Addams costume. So come by for the Halloween stream for that. It'll be fun.
I might need to do
many thanks to our patrons. We love you guys. I am in the process right now of like redoing the Patreon stuff, but step 1 is done. And step 1 is, I used to treat them like nobility, but this isn't Here Be Nobility. This is Here Be Dragons. So our top tier patrons are now known as Great Wyrms. Thank you to our Great Wyrm patrons. Ridiculous Ed Tollett. This dude right here. Love you, buddy. Drive safe on the way home. As well as Lord John Bronsteen, the Wise. Thank you, Great Wyrm patrons. And we also have our Elder Dragon patrons, including the Cloaked One of the Underworld, Ryan Stavka, the Russian Quartermaster, Reflective Rambling, Arch-Maester Emma, Kate, Mistress of the House of Books, who is in the chat right now. I saw her. Jared Kozal, Doctor of Dragons, Lady Maura Lee of Starfall, and Lady Rita, the Unbound. Thank you, Elder Dragon patrons. Emily, I have 2 links in the description of this video for you. One is a link to your Twitter. So if people want to follow Emily on Twitter, she is Emily of the Eyrie, and you can just go to the link down below. There is also, however, a link to a certain YouTube channel called Radio Westeros. Why would I put that link down there?
Well, I am their guest for the entire season 1 of House of the Dragon. So I'm joining them on their weekly coverage after each episode airs. So episodes of House of the Dragon air on HBO at 9 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. So shortly after the stream, I'll be checking that out, as I'm sure many of you will. Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. In the evening, I join Lady Gwyn and Yolkboy on the Radio Westeros YouTube channel, and we live stream for about 90 minutes, and we talk about the episode. Late at night on Tuesday nights, it comes out in podcast form as well. So if you can't catch the live stream or just prefer audio only, it comes out in podcast form as well, with plenty of time to catch up on it before the following episode airs. So.
Yep. Yeah. I've really been enjoying having you on there. You know, the fact that they are having you on there, it's really nice. I mean, Yolkboy and Lady Gwyn are awesome, and they do great.
They're top tier. Yeah, they they are the reason that I know you. They're the reason I'm part of the fandom, because I really didn't even engage with the fandom until during the pandemic. They were like, "Hey, we got a Discord." I was using Discord for my own D&D, so joined the fandom on there, got some D&D games going, eventually met you. Here we are. So
hold on. This happens so rarely. I have to say hello to my brother. Hey, Scott. back to what you were saying, Emily, but like I just was like
That's okay.
practically floored that my older brother is in the chat. Hi, Scott.
That's wonderful. Hello, Scott. Yeah, my sister hops into the Radio Westeros chat sometimes as well. She's living in Panama right now, so I don't see her much. So
yeah, I only know her as Chicken.
Yes. Yeah, so anyway, yep, I'm on Radio Westeros. I really enjoy working with those guys. Like I said, I think they're like top tier. The nice thing that not everyone knows this, but our coverage of House of the Dragon is mostly spoiler free for the books. So if you haven't read Fire and Blood, it's okay. You can still engage with Radio Westeros. I know that in general they are a books only podcast, but for House of the Dragon, we're doing about an hour worth of spoiler free content, and then make it really clear when we're moving into the spoiler section. So if you're someone who's been avoiding it because you're afraid of book spoilers or the books spoiling the show, that's pretty avoidable. So maybe I'll see some of you guys in the chat over there on Tuesday.
Maybe it's so late at night and I have early mornings but yes, I will probably be there at least for part of it.
You usually happen. It's not too late. Steven just goes to bed early, folks. It's
a
7
p.m.
Very
early to bed person. When you have to wake up before 4 a.m.,
that's fair. That is late for you. The other thing, can I promote one more thing? Am I allowed?
Of course.
Okay, cool. Because this Wednesday, I'm very booked up this week. I normally don't stream very much, but on Wednesday of this week, I'll be joining San Rixian, who is in the chat, on her Twitch channel, along with our friend Cabeth. We are going to hang out, and she's going to take some art requests and talk about House of the Dragon, talk about the three of us, along with several others, recently went to the Michigan Renaissance Festival. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So if you want to see cool, mostly dragon-themed art being made, and hear more of me rambling on with my friends, that'll be on Wednesday, and I'm sure Sanri can throw some more info in the chat for you.
That is a patrons-only stream for her.
No, it's not. No? I said that before, and she kindly told me I was wrong and that anyone can join. No. Patrons will get priority in terms of like requests for what they want to see drawn, is how I understand it. So if you're a patron already, hop in and make your requests. But if you're not a patron, but you really want some Sanri doodles, I recommend signing up. There's some very affordable tiers, so there's room for everybody under that.
Yeah, and tent. She's just getting started out, and it's been a long time coming for this. So go support her, please. And to the point that if I could get one of the mods to maybe find links to her Twitch and or Patreon and drop them in the chat, that would be amazing. If not, we will do it ourselves at the end, Emily. But one last thing. We have a Slack group. If you want to join our Slack group, it's basically like Discord. Could you there you go. Sammy did it herself. Thank you. But you can send me an email at we3dragons@gmail.com, and I will get you into our Slack group. And here we do things like plan feel-good watch movie parties and share our Wordle scores and plan our D&D games. And yeah, we have an ongoing Zoom call that we just hang out on. So if you want to join that, send me an email, we3dragons@gmail.com. I'll get you in there. And I kind of bring this up because we just started talking about planning our next get together. We haven't even settled on a place yet, but like Chicago is kind of up there. Somebody mentioned New Mexico, and there was a lot of great reasons to choose New Mexico also. But yeah. Anyway, join us, come hang out with us, and have a good time. We play a lot of D&D over there too. A lot of D&D. Okay, so where were we? We were talking about your characters. Emily, I'm going to have you shift gears on me and talk about your favorite character. Which character do you have a favorite?
I have two favorites.
Sometimes they're kind of like children, it's hard to pick a favorite, but then you have those that you play for a long time.
Yeah, I think that my ultimate favorite is probably Marsley.
Hmm.
So Marsley Meadowmere, she's a 30-year-old halfling monk, Way of the Shadows. She's a sneaky girl. She's 2'11". She's covered in freckles. She has big, kind of curly red hair that she pulls back out of her way when she's fighting. Um, one thing I've noticed about myself is that a lot of my D&D characters have the same crazy hair texture I do, just if it was like the best hair day ever, perpetually. um Marsley, like I said, I created her to be just the funnest, friendliest little monk ever. She was kind of inspired by a character that I rolled up for my little sister the first time that she played D&D. I was like, oh, you'll you'll enjoy playing a monk. It's a martial class, but you'll have fun zipping around. And so my sister Ashley played this monk named Zenny, and I was like, that looked really fun. A couple years later, I remembered that concept and I just tossed it into a game. Zenny, Marsley, she is the oldest of 7 children from a family of glassblowers. Her family, really wanted her to carry on that tradition. And in fact, she has the glassblowing skill as well as the leatherworking skill. And I already told you kind of about how she met her now fiance, Snora. But she, wanted more out of her life than being an artisan. I think it's a really common thing that people struggle with, their parents having one vision for them and them having another. That's definitely something that I relate to. And so I was exploring that concept a little bit. Yes, glass blowing monks unite. Dram, our monk, also blows glass. So I really fell in love with Marsley though, because she is a character who was able to bring a lot of the other characters in this world together. We play kind of, like I said, an adventurers league, or like a Western Marshes style campaign where people come and go from individual adventuring groups, but there's a big kind of collection of folks all living in a city called Pretoria, which is a homebrew world kind of co-created by myself, Craig, who plays Snora, and our other friend Tana Ford. Primarily Tana did the maps for it. She's a fantastic artist. But then the world has been expanded on so much by other people coming in and saying, well, my character, they're a con woman and they need like a high-end bar with gambling in it to do their thing. And so we invented a location like that in the world. And it's been very cool to do that. But Marsley is someone who I think like I've just explored more deeply as a full person than a lot of my D&D characters. Yeah. And it's so fun playing her kind of opposite Snora. So, the two of them know each other really well. He's created an incredible backstory for Snora that I'm really into and have helped develop. So, they have goals in their life. They're like, they just feel like it's Marsley, especially just feels like a real person to me, maybe more than some of my other D&D characters do. So, yeah, she's my one favorite character. My other favorite character is just the longest running one that I've played, which is Veer. She's my I played her in a different edition of Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, where you can multi-class a lot more. So like, yeah, it's a crunchy edition, similar to like Pathfinder 2. So she ended up having like 13 levels of rogue, 10 levels of wizard, 10 levels of a prestige class called Dagger Spell Mage. Like, she was extremely high level, high intelligence, somewhat high charisma, deadly, and by the end of that campaign, like her whole story started with her, she's half drow. She was conceived in a pretty terrible way, and her family tried to conceal it and hide it from her. And so when she found out, she freaked out and, did magic that ended up bringing about the death of some of her family members, then understandably being a teenager who just, killed her mom and whatnot, freaked out and ran away and had a really hard life for a while before eventually, picking up skills to be a rogue and you know, in a lot of ways, like she kind of decided to help save the world as a way to personally atone for something that like she didn't really think she deserved forgiveness for, but at least she could do something right to kind of balance the scales. And so she like literally saved the world to deal with her mommy issues. And I remember going into those final games and like I have a playlist for her. There's this song by Jenny Lewis called Heads Will Roll, and I would listen to it every single time I drove to D&D, just preparing for her to die. I mean, I think one of the lyrics in the song was like, heads will roll and something about like, we'll all be skulls. And I was like, yeah, like I'm fully ready to sacrifice her life. Like she would much rather that she die in this final battle than any of her companions. And she ended up being the only one left to face down the big bad, and lived through it, and you know, then had to have an epilogue of like, holy shit, like this isn't, I didn't think that I would see tomorrow. I was actually like really ready to not see tomorrow. What do I do? So I went through a lot with Veer. She's now an NPC in one of my games, like 150 years later, where, you know, she's half elf, half drow, so she's got an extremely long lifespan, and she really has to figure out what she's going to do. And her boyfriend Artemis Entreri was a human and died 100 years ago, and she's still kicking it. And
why would you say that that's your favorite character though?
Because I played her for so long. She's just a part of me, you know. I think it's as simple as that. You know, when you connect with someone and you are like living in their head every other week for 6 years, you know.
Okay, yeah, 6 years is a long time.
Yeah, putting that down is hard. And like I said, I also brought her back recently, and you know, it's been a fun thought experiment to be like, okay, you know, 150 years later, the love of her life is dead. You know, she you know, went back and like rebuilt the town that her family, which were nobles, like, you know, used to own, and tried to like, you know, make amends for that, but doesn't belong there. You know, what does she do? So she kind of set herself up as a information merchant, and you know, now has like a huge network of people working for her. She's like a super high level NPC in the same world that Marsley's in now. And yeah, it's really interesting. Like she's a character, you know, where it's like, do you look for romance all the time? And like Veer absolutely would not look for romance. She's very much like that, like Loris Tyrell quote of, you know, once the sun has set, no candle can replace it, you know, kind of character. She's just very focused on other things now in her life. I know that's kind of a sad way to look at it, because she'll live like literally hundreds of years more, and maybe someone will prove her wrong someday. Maybe the pain will heal, but you know, she just yeah, I don't know. When you're like the two most famous badass assassins in the world, like, you know, it's like good luck finding someone who lives up to that.
Right. Good luck. Okay, I kind of have a question though.
Mm-hmm.
What's the character you haven't played yet? Like, what is the character?
Like usually the characters that's a great quote. The characters that I haven't played are usually ones that I've played like 2 or 3 times, and then like the game falls apart. I don't have like anyone. I don't have anyone like in the bank for like if someone dies. Like I'm not that person who iterates a bunch, because I have usually, if I'm iterating, I just make them an NPC. So the character that I most want to play again, who I only got to play for like a couple weeks, was this tiefling bard. Her name was Chrysindra, but she went by Sin for short. Often tieflings have some like nickname that they go by. And she was kind of piratey. She was very boisterous, you know, often speaks before she thinks kind of a character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've never really been able to play a bard long term. Like the other bard that I played most recently was the character I played in that play test that Emma ran for the 1D&D.
Right.
Who was essentially just if Enya was an elf in Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
Like So I really want to play a bard. Again, like just like I said earlier, I haven't really been able to play a cleric. Bard is one that I want to play a lot more than cleric, and I think you remember I almost went bard, sorcerer, multi-class with Hecate, but it really doesn't fit her now that she's fully formed. I don't think to randomly dip into bard.
Yeah, but there's a time before that where it could have made sense.
It could have happened. Yeah. I mean, we were all talking about multi-classing into bard as a group and becoming like a boy band or a boy and girl band. I don't know.
Right. Heartthrob band.
Mm-hmm.
Zanry wants to try a bard. I think he'd be great at it. You just have to.
You are a bard. Like
he is a bard in real life. Yeah.
Yeah. That comes to a good point. Like if you were a D&D class in real life, what would you be?
Okay, so I vacillate between wizard and rogue.
Yeah, those are good choices. I knew you'd say that.
What about you though? Because I think you are a bard.
Yeah, probably. Like I think younger me probably would have identified with wizard more. One, I was like so into Harry Potter, but two, I wasn't always really a charismatic person. It took I was that nerdy quiet kid in high school, like never do anything bad, never rock the boat, and I think that fits the wizard class a little bit more. But I think adult me, yeah, probably bard, maybe sorcerer. My real life strength and dexterity scores are pretty mediocre, so nothing martial.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I say rogue just because, like, we'll just say some of the decisions I made in my younger life lead me to believe that I have a couple of classes or a couple levels of rogue. Right. We'll leave it at that. I'm not going to incriminate myself any further than that. But yeah, I don't have the dex to be a great rogue, but that's one of the things I love about the rogue in general is that, and yeah, thank you, Wheezy. Better late than never. The rogue is such a good, like, you can have a mediocre dexterity as a rogue and still be great, especially if you have either a good intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, and lean into those skills. You're gonna be great at that stuff.
Yeah. Yep. And I think if you aren't naturally like that, it's a good opportunity to kind of try that out. I mean, D&D to me is such a safe space to explore aspects of your identity that like maybe you haven't expressed before, but you think might be there. I mean, the number of stories out there of people who have, realized that they were transgender or gender nonconforming or just, that they were totally on the wrong path career-wise or whatever, just by playing D&D and exploring something totally different from who they are is high enough to be non-negligible. I think I mentioned earlier that like I almost entirely play female PCs, but I do play PCs of like varying sexuality, because I'm a bi woman, but I'm married to a man, been with my husband for like 11 years. So, the only time I'm ever going to get like a little woman love in my life is like through a D&D character probably. So, exploring that so far, it's funny. I'm my characters are partnered up with two men. I really, have kind of tried to seek out the opposite side of that, but it just never, I don't know, didn't work out. The Marcelly, for example, is a straight woman, so like she was never gonna date a woman.
Right.
Hecate is very bisexual, but and she and Merrick are like in an open kind of thing.
Who knows what the heck is happening?
Yeah, there may be more women involved down the line, as long as it's not his sister. Who knows? But yeah. I mean, I do that because I want to explore those aspects of myself, and through D&D I found, because I was always like, I think people, consider their gender and stuff like that. I realized, gosh, I'm always playing women. I really will only play a male character or even like a non-binary character if I'm a DM. Like that tells me, that tells me something about my gender identity right there, so yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. And I agree. Like, as somebody who has a pretty severe social anxiety disorder, it has been an outlet for that to play a character that doesn't have social anxiety disorder, or that is a female and expresses that, or is, and at this point, I've played bisexual characters, gay characters, plenty of non-white characters, plenty of non-human characters. I played a character that was gender fluid. But you're right. Like, a lot of it is that ability to explore that space about yourself in a context where there's no real consequences afterwards. Like, you get to try the shirt on, but you don't have to buy it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, well, no one, I'm not saying this about myself. I'm just, my character is exploring. That's totally a valid and fine way to do things, and maybe a safe way, especially for young people, to explore that part of their identity without, having to come out and make any blanket statements for themselves. So, but I mean, even in more mundane ways of like, one thing that I actually find hard and why I don't do certain classes as much is, I think I mentioned it's easier for me to fake being like a strong person or a highly intelligent person than it is for me to dampen things that I'm naturally good at. So why I lean towards charisma-based characters so much is because it doesn't matter if my charisma score is an 8 or like a -1 modifier on the sheet. Like, I have a really hard time toning it down or being less charismatic than I am as a person. I sometimes find it easier to just lean into what I'm good at because dampening certain parts of my own personality. It's like when you're a really smart person playing a dumb character, you have to actively choose to shut up and not add to the plan. I mean, I run into that with Azira all the time because she's not very high wisdom, not very high and very low intelligence. And the group will go in circles and circles and circles planning. And like Emily is like, everyone shut up. This is clearly the best way to do it. But Azira, she's just like, just tell me when it's my turn to hit something. And so I like mute myself to stop myself from.
It's interesting you bring up that point though, that it's easy for you to pretend to be good at something that you, Emily, are not good at, but hard for you to pretend to be bad at something that you are good at. That's like, I don't know that I've ever thought about it that way, but it
took me a long time to notice.
I'm with you because I'm playing a character. I played them earlier today with Jolie as my dungeon master. This character is called Agent Tyrus, and he is a rogue wizard multi-class. And I am loving it because, rogue, wizard, my two favorite classes, basically, and I'm playing a multi-class of it. And he's got a very high intelligence, and so he gets to be smart. I don't, and you've seen me play other characters that are maybe not as smart. Arkin, who plays with Azira, is smart, but you've seen me play other characters in one-shots. And if I'm playing a dumb character, I'm like you, I have a hard time keeping my mouth shut and pretending to be stupid. You know what I mean?
Greg says no comment. Yeah. I think that's in reference to Steven playing a character who burned a bunch of werewolf children alive.
Yeah, I did do that. That character had a high intelligence, but a very low wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, so Marsley was in that adventure, my favorite character, and definitely scarred for life because she was like next to the fire when it happened. But and that's another thing that I since we're talking about my characters that I try to do is like, I've DM'd for people who would be in that situation and just like not even react. Like one time I remember my party was fighting a vampire and I was like, yeah, like hundreds of rats come out of seemingly nowhere and like run down the walls and like start climbing up your legs. And like, I don't know, like I'm horrified thinking about that. They were all like, okay, I keep fighting. And I'm like, literally no one is even going to react to how terrifying this is. When that happened, or like when that in the same encounter, Marsley had to like hack a hag to bits in order to ensure she wouldn't like be reborn. She was like, I was like role playing her, like sobbing as she did it because it was so horrific to this kind of little fairly innocent person who, most of the time has, just, fought very mundane bad guys, and all of a sudden she's fighting this hag who's terrifying to her. And of course she's going to emote. She also reacted to what your character did, and I remember like doing that with a lot of empathy of like, I don't think that your character really thought about what he was doing until it had already happened and how horrific it was. Like, and in fact, you had him run off into the woods and run away and like, just have like a mental breakdown, and everybody else kind of was ready to move on. And I was like, sorry, but we're not leaving these woods till Marsley searches for like at least 4 hours or until someone drags her away. Cause like, even though he did a horrible thing, like she's really worried that either he'll go do another horrible thing or that he's, like gonna harm himself or worse, and so
Craig was the dungeon master for this particular game, and yes, I was playing a chaotic neutral wizard who liked to burn a lot of a
dumbass who fell asleep during his watch.
Yeah, like I think I had a 7 wisdom on that character, so pretty rough. Low anything wisdom based.
Yeah.
Roll perception, great. I don't have proficiency in that, so it's just a straight up D20 roll -2.
Yeah,
and it just didn't go well. But like, just as a point you were making about what would my character do, people use that, and you were talking about how it's a crutch, and yes, I agree. It's used to justify bad behavior at the table.
Yeah.
The counterpunch to that is don't play the character that would do that, because that character is an asshole and shouldn't be part of an adventuring party. If you're stealing from your rest of your party, like, but I will always remember that after I blew up those kids, yes, I blew up werewolf children with a fireball. I didn't know it was going to kill them. I thought they would resist fire and it would maybe knock them back into their normal form. But yeah, anyway, when that happened, the response was like, it came to my turn again in the initiative order, and I think I said, I don't do anything. I am too traumatized. I think he's like, bonus action? Like, no. I think I sit there shaken to my core. And I know that's the type of thing I've seen you do as well. And I love that about the way you play. Okay, so we've got less than half an hour. I know you have a hard out at 9 p.m.
Yeah,
8 p.m. 8 p.m. You have a hard out at 8 p.m. Eastern, so we've got less than 30 minutes left. Is there a character you've played that you want to talk about that you haven't talked about yet? You have a character.
Yeah. I have a meme character I could talk about. So, my friend, Stephen, Katie, who we play Goose Goose Duck with. Well, her husband Tim was a DM for me a long time ago, earlier in my D&D days, and it was our first time playing 5th edition. Tim's a pretty serious guy. He really likes. I really like, people to be serious. I want you to take the game world, just very seriously. And my husband, his like number one childhood crush growing up was Gwen Stefani. And so I really wanted to do a play on the name Gwen Stefani, but I knew my DM wouldn't approve the character. So I named her like Gwendolyn Stephanie Ani, but I like never shared the middle name or anything like that. So it's like Gwendolyn Ani. She goes by Gwen. That's all you need to know. Like, final session of the campaign, something came up where like someone needed like my legal name on a document or whatever, so I whipped out the full name and I'm like, Gwendolyn Stephanie Ani. Honestly, I just go by Gwen Stefani for short. Right. And the DM just like looked at me like, you snuck that by me for so long. So
what are you talking about? Right. I'm nothing special, I'm just a girl.
One thing that like I try to do is like match the energy of my table. So like when I play with Craig, who's here in the chat, like our scenes are very serious most of the time. Like we have fun. Our characters are like in love, but most of the time we're like, very serious about the world around us, and always kind of dealing with. He's a very stoic character, so it kind of brings it down to that level too. But like when I play with main characters, we are a bunch of goofballs. Like we still get stuff done, but we're like the misfits,
Yeah, chaos crew.
Yeah, and then I DM'd an adventure for some friends, and it was like two of my buddies who had children on the way. They were like both going to be new dads, and they wanted to like squeeze in one adventure before it could be over. And I ran Tomb of Horrors, which I ran several times now, and like they were so ridiculous and like approached it in such a different way from all the other parties that I've run it with. Like I was running two parties at the same time. And a couple people in the chat were in one of them. And it was very serious, very traumatic. Like I think I really traumatized Mari a little bit when we played, because
Oh, wow.
Well, she told me they were trying to open a door they couldn't figure out how to open, and so she ended up like sliding like the last like letter that she had from her birth parents, who she had been adopted and couldn't find, into like a slot, like going like, maybe this will like be the offering that's needed. And I scared her by being like, oh, the paper sticks a little bit when you try to pull it back out. She's like, oh my god. So I've got one group in it that I'm like traumatizing, and it's the Tomb of Horrors, and they're taking it really seriously, and then I got another group going through it, and it's like the freaking Looney Tunes by comparison. So
right.
As a player, I can play D&D in a lot of different ways. And so I try to match that. Like, I'm not going to bring a goofy character to a game when I know I'm playing with a bunch of serious people. And the first game I ever played, that 6-year-long campaign, I made that mistake. I brought a really serious, rogue who was kind of about her business to a game where everyone else was just like a chaotic goofball. Leroy Jenkinsing around the countryside.
My favorite alignment in D&D, chaotic goofball.
So I think that's like part of my versatility that I like to bring, and that's why some of my characters are so different. Like Gwendolyn, Stephanie, Ani wouldn't fit at every table, but like neither would Hecate, neither would Marcelly. Like I think.
And you hit on something very smart about matching the energy of the table, and a good dungeon master, I think, is going to set that expectation from the get-go. Not that the one that you're playing with that didn't is a bad dungeon master. We all have.
It was his first time. It was all of our first time playing.
Right.
So,
like there's like you got to start somewhere. I didn't do it for the longest time. Session 0 has become so important.
I won't even there are people who like I won't even like allow to play together at my table anymore, because they just don't work well together. And I know who to invite to different types of games. So I used to do it based purely on availability, especially for my Western Marches type stuff, but now I know like, okay, this person's looking for a really serious experience with a lot of role play. This person is looking for like a fun, laid back, like we're all gonna like smoke weed and chill and try to win. And like those people don't mesh when they're in the same party. So I just don't put them together anymore.
Sandra's got a great question. She wants to know your favorite professional campaign, like Critical Role or etc.
Sure. Let's see. Well, yeah, Critical Role was really well. Actually, no, that's not even right. The first professional D&D stream that I came to, oh God, what are they called? The Penny Arcade guys.
Okay. Is it Acquisitions Inc.?
Yes, thank you. I could not think of the name because I haven't watched them in so long, because all the people I liked left, and it's just the guy who plays Omen Drawn left, and I really find him grating. So, but I got into to D&D streams through Acquisitions Incorporated.
Was that Deborah Ann Wall dungeon mastering?
No, it was Christopher Perkins for a long time, who works for Dungeons and Dragons, and he was fantastic. He left. Scott, who played Binwin, left. The guy who played Jim Dark Magic, who was my favorite, left, and it just kind of became it's just different now. So I stopped watching that. I fell into Critical Role. I really love Critical Role. I've done almost all of campaign 1, all of campaign 2. I haven't really gotten into campaign 3 yet. It didn't click for me as much, and I just I play enough D&D now that like committing to 4 hours a week of a live play game is really hard.
Where you're not even playing?
So my actual answer, I think these days has been Dimension 20. I still like Critical Role, and I think like I've learned a ton from Critical Role. Like I think what made me a good D&D player was mostly Critical Role because I found Dimension 20 so late. But and that's where I learned that you could have romance in D&D, and that you could have like that you could just not play at the dungeon master, but that you could interact with other characters. And I think,
Will you say that again and put it in bold for everyone? You do not sit there and wait for the dungeon master to tell you what's next. That is the worst thing. Sometimes that's why I love your crew. You guys do not need. I mean, you need me there to
facilitate the adventure, but
the ongoing story. But
we could play 2 hours of Zone or Truth or Dare without you there and have a great time.
Just associate with each other, and yeah.
So
and I'm going to answer Sanri's question as well.
Okay.
Excuse me. On Dimension 20, they had a show called Fantasy High, and it is hilarious, and I loved it so much.
Fantasy High is great. Emma and Craig really got me into Dimension 20. I think, I learned, passed along the wisdom. I've learned a ton, like I said, about, not just playing D&D at the DM, but working together as a party. I think I've also learned a lot about how to sit back and let other people have moments. I think probably if you've played enough D&D, everyone has played D&D with someone who, you're not an initiative, and like maybe everyone can search a room, and it's like, player A does something, then player B does something, then player A is like, can I also do that? Can I do this too? And it's like, you gotta chill. Like whenever I'm in that situation, even if Emily has like 5 things she wants to do, you sit back and you do the one thing that makes the most sense for your character at that moment, and you let other people have their moment. I think like, I mean, Hecate never takes damage, but
you're going to really regret the day when I put it all on you at once.
I keep trolling Steven because I think he's done damage to my character like 2 times in a year of playing together. But I'm really good at hiding. Okay, I'm a sorcerer. I stay back. I don't clump. I don't get in the melee. And for a long time, we were traveling by wagon, and it was like a meme that I would just hide in the wagon and be like, "Where's Hecate? Oh, she's in the wagon." Popping her head out, casting a spell, diving back in the wagon. Because, you can be tactical. Like, I mean, I've interpreted it as like mildly cowardly, but you can be tactical about how your character does stuff. You don't have to just run in and take a bunch of damage. And a caster certainly wouldn't want to do that because they're squishy.
Yeah, it's fine. There's other ways to take characters down that aren't hit points. That character is wandering through the Feywild right now and has to figure out how to make a deal with a Fey Duke.
Yeah. We'll figure that out later. That's next week's problem.
So don't worry about that. Like that's for future.
That's next week's problem. That's Hecate's problem. Emily is fine.
Right. Okay, so we've got maybe 15 minutes left. People in the chat, is there anything you would like us to bring up? Emily, I've got one question for you. Okay. You DM a good bit as well as play a good bit. And I'm just going to you may not name my character, okay? Or any character that I play. But I want you to think about a character that you have seen in one of your other games that's not you, that is really like that's a good character. Like one that you really appreciate what the player put into it.
Sure. So I want to say Snora but I feel like I've talked about him a lot. So I'm gonna say something else. But Snora is definitely up there. He's a very real character to me, and Craig's backstory is amazing. I could do a whole stream just on Snora, but I won't. I will. Maybe you should. My husband, he is a really good role player. He doesn't get a lot of opportunity to play D&D with me because he works like 50 to 60 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
But he has put together some awesome concepts. And so we were playing an adventure in Pretoria, and he wanted to join, but we'd already had the adventure going, and everyone was underground, and they were like on their way to fight this dragon who had like basically set up camp in a underground cave that used to be like till about 100 years ago inhabited by a bunch of dwarves, but the dwarves got either run out or killed by invading orcs, and then eventually the dragon came in and started like adding that to her horde. Well, Alan came up with this concept, and he's playing one of the dwarves from that clan who basically the parents like of his character Cavasier were like, go hide, climb into the caves, like, and don't come out until you don't hear anything again, go be safe, because the way out of the mountain was kind of blocked. And so he and his siblings had to do this like crazy climb down. Both of his siblings fell to their death on the climb, and Cavasier basically climbed down and into the darkness and started scavenging down there and became a druid by like befriending and getting close to some of the other like subterranean creatures that lived down there. He'd scrape by kind of like talking to bats and birds, and eventually learned how to be a druid. And then when the dragon moved in, she was very charismatic and basically said like, look, if you help me like climb up to all these places I can't get to and retrieve all this dwarven treasure, once you've brought it all down here to my horde, I'll totally let you go.
Totally.
And he was like, even if she's lying to me, like I could either die now or maybe have a chance to escape later. So he was biding his time, and here's this adventure party come down, and like they're getting their shit wrecked. Like Snora's bleeding out. Snora and another character were bleeding out actually, and another character was fully dead. And he decided to jump in and join the fray and like help fight. And from there, Snora and friends went and like helped him come back to the city and like tried to integrate him into society, but he's like such a weirdo from basically like being raised by cave bats and a dragon since he was like 9 years old in dwarven age, that he's just a total weirdo. He speaks in this like weird little squeakity voice, and like that's not what my husband sounds like. And he's just really committed to the bit. Like he's like doing like secret tunneling in the city underneath like my character's family home, because they're fully. So he's just extremely inventive. Like he has another character who's like, and he and I also work together a ton on the backstories when I'm DMing. And so, like being my husband, he's got a lot of opportunity to bounce ideas off of me and get really creative with me in ways that like maybe it's not as easy to do, especially if you're playing in an online game. But yeah, I like have nothing but love and respect for his characters because we collaborate on them so well. And,
right on.
It's a fun thing to do for my marriage.
That is fun. I have never had the chance to play with Alan. I mean, I've met him. We met at Ice FireCon, and I've definitely played like Goose Goose Duck with him. But I've never had the chance to play D&D with him. I think it'd be fun. And what you describe is, he's a really capable player who understands what's going on and how to make a fun and interesting character. That's great. Yeah. I need to get him in on a game.
He loves dwarves too. And I see Samry asked in the chat, what's my favorite race to play?
I was just going to get to that. So yeah.
It's not dwarf. I play a lot of elves. I don't know. I like elves and half elves a lot. Kind of being torn between two cultures, is a lot. But I like my favorite D&D race, even though I don't play them very often, is probably dwarves. Lately I've just been very into dwarven culture, probably from Rings of Power. I mean, like seeing Maura on screen, like, and Khazad-dû, I'm just like
real talk, like Disa is going to change the way my dwarves are realized in my game world. Like I love. Yeah, you got there. So you basically said it at the same time I did. Disa is my queen. Ooh, here's a good question. If you could do one thing to improve one thing in D&D, what would you change? That's a tough one to answer right now, especially too because of the 1D&D Unearthed Arcana playtesting stuff they're putting out. So it's hard to say because everything's changing already.
Yeah, that's really hard to choose. God, I don't know. I did like that it was easier to like level skills in previous editions of Dungeons and Dragons. Like I feel like that's one thing that like it's okay how it works now. It makes sense to not make it more cumbersome. But as someone who played a rogue in 3.5, who was like a freaking expert at everything by the time I got to final levels, like it's hard to just be like, there's just like, I'm never going to be proficient in this no matter like how long I play. Like, even if I get to level 20 and take all the feats that give me more skill proficiencies, like I'm never going to get there. So, yeah.
I'm with you.
I just have a lot like I'll homebrew, so like when that's why I like to institute downtime in my games, and I use some of the official rules and I've added some of my own rules, because rather than like just teleporting from adventure to adventure with no time to break, and getting like 10 levels in 3 months, like I like travel to take time. I like to have things be calm and okay for a little while and not just the world is always ending. So
yeah.
You can introduce downtime to help people level up skills that they otherwise could not.
Yeah, I do that as well. Like your crew hasn't really had much downtime, and the campaign we're in is sort of like engineered not to give you much downtime.
Well, and we get a lot of travel time on the road,
You
so
do,
that's
but
okay.
but it's not true downtime.
Right. Yeah. Like we can maybe practice languages a little bit, like, but yeah. Yep. It works well for Pretoria though, with the style that it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Hi, Mom. Thank you for being supportive of me playing D&D even through the middle of the satanic panic in the 80s.
Yeah, who did win, Stephen? Just got a good question.
Okay, we're gonna go play D&D. Okay, I hope you win. Thanks,
Are
Mom.
you winning, son?
Right?
It's that meme.
We just finished D&D. Oh, did you win? Thanks, Mom. Love you.
Oh, Mom, that's not how you do it.
You win.
Yeah,
she's cool.
exactly.
And she's actually, Mom played, was it Pathfinder you played with us, Mom, for a little while? I don't think it ended up really being her cup of tea, but she did try the game for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask the chat if they have any more questions because we're running out of time here. So,
well, and like we can cut it off, and I'm going to do a little bit of an outro. But yeah, she played a barbarian. I want to say, like Ma just played a big barbarian in Pathfinder, which is hilarious because my mom is like 5'1.5" or something. So playing the big barbarian is a lot of fun to see. Yeah, if you guys got questions for Emily or something you would like me to ask her, now is your last chance, because here in about 3 minutes I'm going to start the outro. Because I promised Emily we would be done.
Yeah, I got to go into House of the Dragon mode stat, because by the time I'm done watching the episode for the first time, I am going live on YouTube 45 hours later to talk about it. And I have a full-time job. And also I'm really smart and I scheduled a hair appointment for tomorrow night. So.
Right. So this is your last chance. To get any questions.
I'll probably be back. This is not my first time talking about D&D with you.
Okay, here's my question. And what is something you've always wanted to have happen to a character that has not happened yet? Like, because I love it when a character has like the big dream, the big goal,
This is so dark of me, but I've never had a D&D character get killed even temporarily, and I just wish that my DMs would stop being cowards.
Well, as somebody who has killed multiple characters in the last year and a half, like, don't push your luck with me, sister.
I know. No, I mean, I feel like I'm getting a lot of wish fulfillment really with Hecate, like where you're paying off her backstory in ways that like no one else really does. Like,
oh, well,
yeah.
So you're getting what you want.
Yeah.
I'm really glad. There is a certain art to picking up the threads of a character's backstory and weaving them into the larger narrative. Which is why if we go all the way back to the beginning and you're like, metallic dragon sorcerer, and I'm like, just easy. It's easy because I have I can take dragon sorcerer and just the way this particular
it fits.
I mean,
Yeah,
you get it. Having played it, and if you are a dragon sorcerer, I can just slot your sort of backstory into that spot. I don't see any other questions in the chat, which is fine. We've had a 2-hour conversation.
Yeah, that's okay. You really should. Yeah, you should invite Sanry on. You should invite Craig on. He's been playing D&D for a really long time, and he paints a lot too.
Now, I'm gonna have Sanry on for something else soon.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And maybe I probably will talk to her about her D&D character during that, but I don't know that she has enough broad. Like we talked about 6 or 7 different characters for you. I don't think she's got the same sort of broad
depth. Yeah, she's been playing for a year. Yeah, exactly.
But the next time I get her on here, we will be talking about Satai, and maybe I'll get to do my Stanley voice.
Oh yeah, I hope so.
But that will be for some other time. So you know what, Emily? Let's just wrap it up, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well, everyone who is still here, thank you so much. If you haven't hit the like button, please do that. If you haven't subscribed, please do that. Come back next week when we'll talk about, I don't know, something. Who knows? Something nerdy, though. It'll be fun. And Emily, once again, thank you for joining us. If you want to follow Emily on Twitter, she's got it's funny. You're shallow. Yeah. But Emily's link to Emily's Twitter down below. Also doing coverage for Hot D with Radio Westeros on Tuesday evenings. I will be in the chat there this Tuesday. I hope to see you all there. Emily, it's a pleasure as always. It's just always great fun when we get together. And yes, Stanley is her emotional support spirit animal, fae creature thing. Basically, I took elements of Find Familiar, elements of Summon Steed, and then just made us a very particular, specific spell for Satai. Satai's Stanley summoning. It's good spell. But yeah, come back next week for whatever it is. We'll have fun, just chilling and being nerds and talking about the nerdy thing of the week. So yeah, thank you one and all. I guess I
love you, Steven's mom.
Yeah, I love Steven's mom too. So yeah, come back next week, hang out, have fun. I'll be doing another more D&D type of thing. I need to get Emma in as well. Dan Bone, aka Voice of Geekdom. I need to get him in here for this. It'd be a lot of fun. But anyway, yeah, we'll see you all next week. Thanks for stopping by. We love you guys, and we'll see you next week. Until then, peace and be excellent to each other. Bye.
Bye.